just in case. This meeting is being recorded. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another reading of Lord Meher on a Thursday night at India and maybe morning wherever else in the world you are. We are going to be reading from page number 1638 today. And just before we start, I would just ask everybody to just close their eyes for a few seconds and connect with Meher Baba. And slowly, gently opening their eyes. And I would like everyone to stay muted while we're recording. And when you're called out to read, you can unmute yourself, please. Uh, okay. Film projects and work in India. Maharaj was even called to testify before a Kopargaon court, but he refused, stating that he had been kept by God beyond the world and worldly pleasures, so he was not liable to give evidence to a temporal court of law. The court is not the place to answer for what I do, he explained. The court, however, rejected a plea, a petition to have the case dismissed. When Baba heard about this, he asked Rustam to have the case transferred to Ahmednagar court, which would be more sympathetic and where they might have more influence. Rustam did so, and on Thursday, 20th September 1934, Baba sent Adi Senior, Vishnu, and Dhake to Upasni Maharaj at Sakori with this message. Marvin, could you please read from here? Thanks.
Okay. Baba is in financial difficulty at the moment, and Maharaj returned the loan of rupees 15,000, which Baba sent him through Bajifdar in the days of Manzil Amin. If Maharaj repays the loan, Baba will postpone his trip to the West and free Maharaj from his court trouble through the influence of his followers. In the East and the West, Baba has wealthy, influential devotees like Sir Akbar Haidari, who could prevail on the governor to help in the case, and Maharaj would be free of it. When this message was delivered to Maharaj, he replied, "It is since these plotters have joined hands to libel and harass me that the devotees who used to come to me and contribute donations no longer visit. I hardly have enough to fight the lawsuit, and whatever valuables I have been auctioned off. Have I a storehouse of funds here? I am a poor beggar. The demand of money from one like me is a request to one who is hardly in a position to reply. Look at my cattle. They are reduced to skeletons for want of fodder. Tell Merwan to take them away if he likes. Also tell him to move here and manage things. I now have nothing left with me. I am an empty shell, the kernel of which is eaten away. For their own good, people serve me and pray to me, taking me to be Paramatma, God. I permit them to do so. Let some people praise me and others hate and harass me. I am for both. I am not bothered if some try to blackmail me, nor am I elated by eulogy. Tell Marwan that I seek his forgiveness for not being of any use to him. By his own righteous deeds, he has realized God. Nice photo of Maharaj. Okay, I think we can scroll to the text. Adi, Vishnu, and Dake returned to Mehrabad and informed Baba of what Upasi Maharaj said. On the 22nd, Baba sent Vishnu alone to Maharaj to convey this message. Quote, Baba planned to proceed to the west on the 18th of October, but due to your troubles, he is now postponing the trip. Thus, for a period of time, there was a continuous exchange of such strange messages between Meher Baba and Upasdi Maharaj, but no one could really understand the hidden meaning of their actions. As Age explains, Upasdi Maharaj was a Sadguru, and Meher Baba the Avatar. Only they could fathom the mystery underlying this exchange. To ordinary people, it is their Leela, or divine play, which is beyond the limited mind. How can the gross mind gauge the significance of their actions? The intellect is incapable of grasping infinite knowledge at work. It is part of a divine game that both perfect beings played, whereby perhaps the burden of their spiritual work was lightened. Baba was especially fond of Rustam and Frainie's children. On Thursday, 25th September 1934, he went to Nasik with Ani Sr. and Colin Gad to enroll the children in school. Franny was emotionally unwell and could not properly look after them, and Rustam was occupied in business and his duties with Baba's work and property. Baba would often go to Nasik to make certain the children were taken care of and to see to their welfare. He returned to Mehrabad that same day. Prior to this visit, Ramju had been called in Nasik to have Dina Talati prepare food upon Baba's arrival. She was not surprised when she was asked to do this because the night before she dreamed that Baba had arrived in Nasik. Usman, Munshi Rahim's adopted son, came suddenly in the evening to see Baba after several years. When asked how he had come to know of Baba's presence, he too said he had dreamed the previous night of seeing Baba and taken it as a sign that the master would be in Nasik. And on the 26th, Baba went with Adi Sr., Colin Gad, Naval, Ramju, and Syed Sahib to a spot near Pandu Lena Caves where they had an outing. Baba probably returned to Mehrabad that night. On September 27th, Nadir Dastor came to Mehrabad. In the course of a private conversation, he complained that he had lost money in business due to Baba's advice, and his friends were now ridiculing his continued faith in the master. Baba explained to him at length, the meaning of faith is that one is not shaken by anything. Faith is the means whereby anything can be courageously accomplished. Worldly people naturally worry about their families, but in reality, everything is one big zero. How long will your connection with your family last? What do you know about your forefathers? And likewise, how long will your family members remember you after you pass away? The topic, they will forget everything. No one is going to remember anything or have any connection with you. All these present connections are only temporary. They are not permanent or everlasting. You are now worrying about your family because of some monetary problems. Suppose that everything is all right and you have millions tomorrow. We will all live in comfort then. You will collect jewels and other things. But what about in the hereafter? Nothing is left. When the body drops, everything ends. Everything becomes useless, meaningless. So we masters see far ahead to the goal because only that is permanent and lasting. We do not pay attention to all these superficial difficulties. You are mine. You have faith in me. I gave you advice and you lost money by carrying it out. If people say that I have used up your money, is it true? But why? How can people be blamed? You are definitely mine because you have faith in me and you have held out and stuck fast to my feet despite your own hardships. But how are people to believe this? How could they have such faith? Therefore, if they speak against me behind my back, just listen quietly. What truth is in it? Christ was nailed to the cross, but did it change his state? The truth is, he who is perfect is not moved by any disaster. He remains perfect even if the whole world speaks against him. How would the sun be affected if men were to shoot arrows at it? The arrows will rebound and come raining down on the persons who shot them. The avatar or the Sadgurus are thus like the sun. They're not going to be impressed or influenced in any way by the arrows of slander. But why am I affected by this? I feel for you because you are being harassed. Remember this: those whom I love suffer somehow in any event. But this is the moral: no sooner than you have money, pay off your debtors. You got involved in a business in which you suffered a loss because I asked you to get involved. Now I will turn the key in such a way that everything will be all right and you will have happy times. But always be honest in your dealings. It is better to be honest and suffer than to be dishonest and enjoy life. Now, dear departed, feeling reconciled, comforted by Baba's words. During October of 1934, cables continued to be sent back and forth between America, Europe, and India about the film project and Baba's forthcoming trip to the West. At one point, Carl Vollmoller had fallen ill, thus delaying the written screenplays. The films, however, were progressing in other key departments. Baba received several cables to the effect: need your presence now for creating confidence in others and certainly in artistic and financial decisions. Another stated, your presence invaluable to quicken results. Baba was therefore making the necessary arrangements to return to the West for the eighth time in 3 years. On 23 October, Baba received a cable from Norina stating, your coming now would help every angle. Although the films never did get produced, they served as a valid external purpose for Baba's to journey to Europe and America to be with his lovers. Baba's secretary, Chanji, was kept busy with the correspondence. On one occasion, Baba sent this rhyme to Minta, whom he had nicknamed Shalimar. What a lovely face! What charm and grace! What beautiful ways has Shalimar! What heart full of love! What mind full of clove! What a beautiful dove is Shalimar! Come, don't lose heart. Play well your part, my Shalimar. Baba visited Akbar Press on Monday, 22nd October, 1934. While there, he explained how the mind changes all aspects of suffering, giving the example of two of his women followers, each suffering physically. One woman is old in age, but lacking in wisdom. She is full of whims and weaknesses of mind. She complains she is suffering from so many diseases, almost every disease in the world. She has this trouble and that trouble. She wants all her physical ailments to disappear for good and at once. Even when she is all right, she thinks of 1,001 imaginary diseases and believes she has one or the other of these. She is continually racking her brains and worrying incessantly, which actually does affect her weak and failing health due to her advanced age, and she suffers unnecessarily. Quite the opposite is the case of a young woman who is broken in health due to a disease that has her whole physique in its grip and has shattered it to render it a total wreck. Yet she takes it all so cheerfully and doesn't worry. She takes remedies as advised and is improving gradually. In short, the real sufferer is the younger woman, but because she doesn't worry and takes it lightly, she is happy in spite of all her sufferings. The old lady, who has certain weaknesses and complaints due to old age, makes a mountain out of an anthill and takes everything too seriously. Consequently, she suffers unnecessarily for things she doesn't even have. Thus, it is all in how you take it. Similarly, if one closely related to you were to die and one doesn't worry over it, it doesn't affect one, and one feels light and happy as usual. But if one takes it to mind, cries, weeps, and laments, one becomes unhappy unnecessarily. An Indian woman devotee came to Baba at Meherabad on Sunday, 28 October 1934. She complained openly before Baba that she wished to stop having sexual intercourse with her husband because of her desire to see God, but her husband was unwilling. Consoling her, Baba explained, "It is better to treat your husband with love and affection, even if you dislike and do not wish to indulge in intercourse, because of your spiritual aspiration and desire to love God. It is good to have no sexual desires, but when it comes to a question of duty, you must sacrifice a little of your interest and please your husband. Keep your mind focused toward God and give your body to your husband. You needn't worry. Just try to do as I advise. These remaining sanskaras must be finished before the experience is given. Remember Mirabai's sacrifice and how she suffered. Be like her." Mira was one of Meher Baba's favorite saints, and his story is famous in India. Mira was a Hindu born around 1498 in the village of Kurki, Rajasthan. She was married to a Rajasthan king, but she was so absorbed in devotion to Krishna, she had no attachment to her husband, who was killed in a battle when Mira was in her late 20s, or to his kingdom. She would compose songs in praise of Krishna and then leave the palace to sing them to the common people. The new king and his family considered it degrading, but she did not care. Once the royal family was so upset, they plotted to kill her. They placed a cobra in Mira's flower basket, but when she opened the basket to garland Krishna's statue, the cobra had been transformed into flowers. In another attempt to murder her, they gave her a glass dosed with poison. She drank it, saying Krishna's name, and the poison turned to nectar. Thus, they began to realize Mira was no ordinary person and was protected by Krishna. Years passed, and Mira's absorption became all consuming. One day she left the palace and did not return. Singing Krishna's praises, she walked far until she reached Vrindavan, the sacred place of Krishna and the gopis, and remained there. When she did not return, the king searched far and wide. He finally found her absorbed in her ecstatic vision of Krishna. Many people recognized that she was a genuine saint and stayed near her, and the king and his family became her followers. Okay, maybe we can have another reader.
Um, E- Eva, would you like to read?
I can read after. I'm having a dog being dropped off, and the
Okay,
dog.
okay, all right. Marlin, Marilyn, could you read?
Yes. Baba was to have departed for England on the 18th of October, 1934, but he postponed his trip and booked passage a month later. He went to Pune on Thursday morning, 1 November, accompanied by Adi Sr. Jalbhai, Chanji, and Vishnu. Adi was driving, and Baba sat next to him in the front seat. It had rained heavily the night before, and after driving 40 miles near Loni, the car skidded across the wet, slick road. As the car was careening out of control, Baba pressed Adi's left hand on the steering wheel 3 times. The car came to an immediate stop, just 10 feet from a large pile of wood in front of a small stone hut. A serious accident had been averted due to Baba's intervention. Baba had gone to Pune especially to meet his mother, Memo. He wished Addie Jr. to accompany him to America, but Memo was unwilling to allow it. After a visit with his family, Baba visited, I should say, it's page 1644. Yes. Film projects and work in India, 1934. That's the heading at the top of the page. After a visit with his family, Baba visited the Abdullahs, where he ate dinner. The couple had been having difficulties in their marriage, and Baba sorted things out. He and the Mandali returned to Meherabad late that same night, driving very slowly in the pouring rain. At Meherabad, Baba held a meeting on the 4th about the running of Meherabad while he was away. He had considered shifting the women to Nasik. In parentheses, he even went to look at suitable bungalows there and disbanding the Mandali. But in the end, he decided to have everyone remain at Meherabad until he returned. Padri and Pendu were given the charge of looking after the men and Pillamai the women, with Gulmai acting as an intermediary. Durgabai's son, Raghunath Karmakar, met Baba that day and informed him that Upasani Maharaj had transferred many valuables to Godvari's name and had even given Godavari's lawful husband 7,000 or 8,000 rupees to allow her to continue staying in his ashram. Raghunath, though humble in nature, was confused by Maharaj's statements to him that lust has arisen in him, in parentheses, Maharaj. Baba explained the situation to him, saying while he was against Maharaj's tendency to lionize Godavari to the extent of asking others to take her darshan, he was neither in favor nor against Maharaj's way of working. He suggested Maharaj form a trust and transfer his property to it. Later, Baba commented, the news of Durgabai's breakoff with Maharaj about 4 years back, together with her indulgence to harm Maharaj by helping a clique formed in Koparagan, is astounding as it is painful. A satsang of 25 years could not overcome a paroxysm of rage caused by jealousy and greed. Convincing her own son to go against Maharaj, she has succumbed at last to the promptings of her lower nature. Meanwhile, the defamation case concerning Upasani Maharaj was proceeding, and he was called to give testimony in an Ahmednagar court on 26 October. The prosecution's witness failed to turn up, and the proceedings were adjourned until the following day. Maharaj spent that night at Kushru quarters. Godavari gave evidence on the 28th, after which Maharaj and the Kanyas departed for Sikori at 4 p.m.
And there's a footnote. Maharaj came again to Kushru quarters on 10 December 1934, when he stopped there for 2 hours on his way to Hyderabad. The court case was not settled until a year later, when Maharaj was found guilty under the Devadasi Act of marrying young girls to an idol. Maharaj was fined 100 rupees, but the verdict was appealed and later overturned. End of footnote.
Before leaving for Europe, Baba sent the following message for his lovers to be published in the Meher Gazette. Those who are united in love know no separation. Wherever I am, wherever you are, I am always with you. On Thursday, 15 November 1934, Baba boarded the SS Tuscania in Bombay to set sail for Europe. He was accompanied by Kaka, Chanji, Adi Sr., and Jalbai. Rustam saw them off at the dock, and Baba again said he would call Rustam to America later. Baba and Kaka shared a cabin, while Adi, Jalbai, and Chanji occupied an adjoining one. Tipping the ship's chef and their stewards ensured that Baba's meals were delivered to his cabin. But during the voyage, Baba began regularly sending one of the mandali to the chef to demand various combinations of foods. At any excuse, Baba sent the mandali back to that particular man. After so many times, Baba's incessant demands were quite embarrassing to the men. Finally, after some time, Baba explained what he was doing with the chef. The absorption of a person in a subject concerning me enables me to link, as it were, his thoughts on me. An opportunity is thereby created to work spiritually, to dislodge seats of low desires in the mental body of the person, rendering them impotent without them being put into action through the physical body. The man is also being given the chance to serve me, whether he knows me or not, an opportunity he will not get again in this life. While on board, Baba played ping pong each day with Adi or Jalbai, and he took strolls on deck. He sometimes played cards with the mandali, but not for money. Instead, they used glass beads or whatever else was handy and played for these. They arrived in Port Said on 23 November at 9 in the evening and left the ship to see a movie. After reboarding and putting out to sea, a rough storm arose, and Adi, Kaka, and Chanji were confined to their cabins with seasickness. Baba and Jalbai remained well. Baba and the mandali arrived in Marseille on Wednesday, 28 November, and took the train directly to Paris. From there, they continued on to England and arrived at Victoria Terminus in London at 7 in the evening the following day.
You're
November
too feeble. Could you please increase your volume if you don't mind?
too soft.
Yeah.
Okay. Both the mandali, both Baba and the mandali arrived in Marseille on Wednesday, 28 November, and took the train directly to Paris. From there, they continued to England and arrived at Victoria Terminus in London at 7 in the evening the following day. November 29th was the wedding day of the Duke and Duchess of Kent, and celebrations were being held throughout the city. As the group traveled to their lodgings, Hygeia House, past Buckingham Palace, Hyde Park, and the West End, they passed through the crowds watching a parade. Baba thus had an opportunity for collectively contacting a multitude of people. The English lovers again had Baba in their midst, and they swarmed around him during his 5-day stay in London.
Thank you. He made a few contacts but spent most of his time with those familiar and devoted to him. In the evenings, Baba usually went to a movie. On one occasion, he saw The Iron Duke phonograph records were also played in the downstairs hall at Highgate House. Baba was mainly preoccupied with arranging his trip to America. On 30th November, he obtained United States visas for himself and the Mandali and had passage booked across the Atlantic train tickets from New York to California. Because of this work, he hardly had any time left to see people or give interviews. But a reception was held for him on Saturday, 1st December 1934, at the office of the Circle Editorial Committee with about 70 of his devotees and other interested persons. Walter and Heidi Mertens arrived from Switzerland to meet Baba. Walter was intellectually inclined, and on one occasion he and Charles Purdom asked Baba a few questions.
And we have a footnote. Walter Mertens knew Carl Jung and had undergone psychoanalysis with the famous psychiatrist. Walter's father had married Carl Jung's wife's cousin. Kitty once asked Baba if there had been anyone in the West whom he had wished to contact, but had been unable to do so. And Baba replied, Carl Jung. Years later, Irene Conybeare sent Jung a copy of The Wayfarers. Jung responded that he had heard quite a bit about Meher Baba many years before from Norina. End of footnote.
About knowledge, Baba explained, man has all the nourishment to make him strong, but out of ignorance, he is eating things that do not make him strong, but fat. The metaphor contains all the teachings of the world. What is lacking is the knowledge of the heart. Can you just one second? One of them then asked, what is jealousy? Baba spelled out. Jealousy comes from a poverty of the heart and is essentially selfish. What is the difference between lust and love? Lust is nothing else but the desire for self happiness. Love is the desire for the happiness of others. What do you want of a man? Sorry, what do you want of man? The realization of the self through love. What do you require of your choice? Or sorry, what do you require of your close followers? To follow my instructions faithfully in order to achieve the same goal, realization of the self through love. How can one increase love? By thinking more of the suffering of others instead of your own suffering. This is the shortest way. Should one be more of an idealist than a materialist? To be merely an idealist is hopeless. To be merely a materialist is also hopeless. It is necessary to create a balance between the two. Can you just highlight from where I'm to read, because when you moved, I kind of lost.
Sure. Sorry. It's the very last one. I don't know how to highlight, but it starts
Yeah,
marking.
that's okay. Thanks.
Okay, is that it?
Norina, yeah. Norina cabled from New York on 3rd December 1934 again, informing Baba that his presence was essential to the film projects. On the 4th, Quentin met with Baba and promised that he would assist Margaret with the spirit dances. Originally, Margaret and Quentin were to have accompanied Baba to choreograph these dance sequences. But now Quentin was unsure if he could go since he was about to start another job. Thank you. Next page. Waiting in India, meanwhile, Rustam Adi Jr. and Behram were also supposed to join Baba in America, but all of these plans were still uncertain due to lack of finances. Baba and the Mandali left London on the morning of Wednesday, 4th December 1934.
I think you froze.
Yeah, we're
I'm
not
not able,
hearing any.
I
I'm sorry.
can't see it.
You cannot see it now?
No. Footnote, normally the person who's sharing is the one who can see it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Should I stop sharing it and then put it back up again?
That's
Here,
up to you. Can you just click on it?
I'm gonna do it again. Let me see. 16. That was 1647.
Uh,
This meeting is being recorded.
They traveled to Southampton by train with several of his close ones, who included Kitty, Walter and Heidi, Diala, Margaret, Tom Sharpley, Anita, Rosamond Weiss, and Will and Mary. Baba sailed from Southampton abroad, the SS
Aboard.
Majestic. Sorry, abroad, right?
Aboard.
Aboard. Aboard, sorry. The SS Majestic at the dock. The English lovers were sad to see their beloved depart after such a brief visit. They looked like mourners with swollen eyes as they bid him tearful farewell. Eva, could you take up from here? The Majestic was.
Sure. The
Thanks.
The Majestic was the largest ship in the world at the time, and Baba was given a splendid stateroom with attached bath on the B deck. Once again, Kaka shared Baba's room, and Jalpai, Chanji, and Adi Sr. occupied a smaller cabin on deck E. As previously planned, Rano, Nani, and Ruano boarded the ship at Cherbourg. Baba approved of Nani and Rano's cabin, but he did not like the one assigned to Ruano. He sent Rano to change it with the purser, who refused to do so. Baba kept sending Rano back, however, and the man finally complied and gave Ruano a better cabin. Baba used to refer to the three women as the trio, and one day revealed that they had close past connections with him at the time of Jesus and with one another from a previous life in Egypt. Ruano and Nani had been brother and sister, and Rano had been Ruano's son. Thereafter, Rano jokingly began calling Ruano Papi. Since it was winter, the weather was quite cold, and Baba seldom went out on the ship's deck. He amused himself each day by playing ping pong with Rano on an enclosed deck. They never kept score, but just hit the ball back and forth. with Rano valiantly trying to return Baba's ever-frequent smashes. One night at sea, Rano remembered back to the time when she had wanted to marry. She talked to Baba the next day and said, I now understand why different circumstances in my life did not turn out as I wished them to. Had things worked out the way I wanted, I would never have come to you. Baba concurred. Yes, you are right. Everything is in my hands, and I created such circumstances for you that you would come to me. You had to come. Nearing America, Baba made it clear that he did not wish to meet any outsiders while in New York. No new persons, no interviews, and no publicity. But Norina had already informed certain people about the master's arrival and also intended to publicize his visit. She cabled this to Baba on the ship, and Baba cabled back, instructing her to cancel everything and that he would not even grant interviews. When the ship docked in New York on Wednesday, 12 December 1934, a group of newspaper reporters and photographers tried to invade Baba's cabin, but he would not meet them and instructed Chanji to send them away. As usually happened with Baba's arrivals in foreign countries, there was some delay in their disembarkation. After a considerable wait, the press dispersed. One newspaper article described Baba as wearing a sweater, coat, hat, and carrying a silver knobbed cane. Immigration officials tried to make him talk, but he just smiled and let his secretary speak for him. Immigration authorities were told of Baba's 2 previous visits to America, and he was permitted to enter the country and stay for 60 days. He and his group were allowed to pass through customs without unnecessary questioning. After leaving the customs area, Baba was greeted by Norina, Nadine, Elizabeth, Minta, and Graham Phelps Stokes. Stokes had invited Baba to stay at his home again, but perhaps because Stokes put certain conditions on the stay, only 2 of the Mandali to be accommodated and only up to a certain date, the group proceeded in 2 taxis to the towering Shelton Hotel at 525 Lexington Avenue, where Norina had arranged for Baba to stay in room 3104. Rano and Nani stayed with their family. Footnote: the painter Georgia O'Keeffe, who was interested in Gurdjieff, and her photographer husband, Alfred Stieglitz, lived in an apartment on the 28th floor of the Shelton. Despite Baba's cancellation of private interviews, Darwin and Jean Shaw, a young couple from Schenectady, New York, were very anxious to meet Baba. For many years, Darwin Cyrus Shaw had been a genuine seeker and student of religion, philosophy, and mysticism, searching for the answers to the mystery of life. Both he and Jean felt a close connection with Jesus. Darwin had strong feelings that the second coming of Christ would take place very soon. 2 years before, in the spring of 1932, He became keenly interested when he read in the newspaper that Sri Meher Baba was coming to America and was considered by his disciples to be a great spiritual personage. Intuitively, Darwin felt that Baba might be the one he was expecting. Another newspaper article during 1932 announced that Meher Baba had arrived in America and would be staying at a retreat near Harmon for about 10 days. By this time, Darwin had come to feel that Meher Baba was the returned Christ. He had reached out to Baba inwardly, and he felt that Baba actually responded by visiting him in spirit. His feelings about Baba were so strong that he felt like leaving his job and going right away in search of Baba. However, he allowed his feelings to be overruled by rational thinking. He thought that since Baba would be there for 10 days, he could wait a few days until he would have the Memorial Day holiday off from work. So on Memorial Day weekend, Darwin and one of his friends, a 22-year-old neighbor named Donald Holloway, drove to Harmon, about 130 miles away. They soon found the retreat, only to learn that Baba had finished his work there early and gone on to California. This was a deep disappointment. However, the feeling there of Meher Baba's loving presence was still very evident. They were welcomed by a few of Baba's followers who were still there, namely Josephine Grabau, her mother Mary Anton, Milo Shatuk, footnote. This is a long one. Do you want me to read it? Here, I'll start. Milo Shatuk had maintained his close connection with Meredith Starr and returned to the Devon retreat in 1934, where he spent 6 months. Later, he became a landscape gardener and a social worker. He had no further recorded contact with Meher Baba. Milo's mentor, Thomas Watson, likewise drifted away from Baba. In May 1933, Watson wrote Meredith, "Your changed attitude towards Baba is exceedingly interesting, for it has been mine almost from the beginning. He made a deep impression on me for about 3 days when I first met him at East Chellicombe. But after that, repulsions played about him in stronger than attractions. I said nothing to you about it, for I blamed my lack of spiritual insight for my feelings towards him. When I met him in Boston in 1931, all the attractions had vanished. I seemed to sense something wrong." Missouri, A Romance in Natural History, page 278. Mary Anton, too, returned to her Christian-oriented communal friends at Gould Farms in Western Massachusetts and sought solace in anthroposophy. Her daughter Josephine remained a lifelong disciple and married Margaret Starr's brother, Kenneth Ross, in June 1937. Josephine Ross' book of poetry and songs of a modern disciple is dedicated to Meher Baba. Below is a poem Josephine wrote for her mother about anthroposophy.
Eva, let's go back to the reading now.
Okay. Anita DeCaro, Howard Inches, and Grace Mann Josephine asked Darwin if he would like to write to Baba. He did, pouring out his heart in a letter, offering his life in Baba's service. Darwin immediately mailed it and returned to the retreat for dinner. Halfway through the meal, he began to feel Baba replying to the letter. Darwin felt a welling through the heart with unmistakable love, answering everything in my letter, and tears began falling from his eyes. Although he deeply regretted missing Baba, Darwin was happy that he had found Baba's followers and longed for the day when he could meet the master in the flesh. In 1934,
Okay, Eva.
Yeah.
I think we should stop. We're already past the hour by almost 5 minutes, and this story keeps going on. So I think if we stop right here, it'd be a good spot to pick it up
Okay.
next time.
Good idea. Good idea.